So we were obviously told that, well, I was told I had to come up with an intro or a jingle. So there's three options. First one, I put in
Don't even
chat.
say hello to people or
No,
nothing.
because this isn't the intro. This is like the the is it called a prequel?
I
No, because
don't
then
know,
no, because I'm going to talk through the intros. Then when we agree which intro, I'm going to do the intro and say hello to everyone.
but we're recording this bit.
Oh shit, yeah.
Do you want me to stop recording? No, I'm not going to do that. Just do your thing, right?
All
Clayton,
right.
people are really expectant on this intro for the Clayton and James show. You haven't even introduced yourself yet or nothing.
All right, we're getting there. So I put into Chat GPT
Yeah.
about the intro, and it came up with the very exciting, "Hey, football lovers, it's the Clayton and James show where footy meets fantasy, and we keep you in the loop with all the latest action. Let's dive into the world of football." Next,
Right,
one of
that's
our
too long. I don't mind that. It just wants to be a bit shorter.
that's awful. I don't like that. Football lovers, hey, football lovers, it's a bit, yeah, don't like that.
You can adjust it. Oh, it's not, okay. Go on. What
Okay.
else we got?
One of our patrons sent in an AI generated
Ah,
jingle.
Tom, what a hero.
Uh, I missed Tom's. I've got one from Billy.
Oh, so no,
But
it is Billy. Sorry. It
okay.
is Billy.
Um, so here goes.
The Clayton and James Show are one generals. About FPL and football in general.
Right, that's fucking terrible. Next.
So what I've landed on is I'm Clayton. You're James. Welcome to the Clayton and James Show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Clayton.
My name's James. That's terrible. I think of the three, I preferred the AI.
I think that's a bar.
No, mate, it's not. It's not. The patrons are used to you singing the Champions League music for the UCL fantasy pods on a Tuesday. Are like, no, no, no. There's less of Clayton singing, I think.
I'll be honest, I'm struggling here with the intros and stuff. So yeah, send in more if people feel passionate about it. We'll keep thinking of some more. I
Probably
think that's
not.
a bar. Send
Yeah,
feedback on my
no,
beatboxing.
no, no, it's terrible. Clayton, you're that typical person who thinks they can beatbox and stuff. Like you
Yeah, I
can't.
know, I can't beatbox.
Okay, topics on the Clayton and James show this week. We're going to be talking about a momentous result for San Marino, a little bit of FPL impact of some of the events over the internationals, injuries, and some players' travel. Then we're going to be talking about something that's really annoyed me and Clayton about Sunday's North London derby. And we'll do on this day at the end as well. From 1999, Clayton. But firstly, we shall start with reaction to Lee Carsley's England week. Give him the job full time, yes or no?
Uh, yeah, why not? I must say I didn't actually get to see the game against Ireland because I was at a wedding, but I heard lots of positive things. I watched, and I literally just caught Kane's first goal last night, and then I did switch it off. But last night, I don't think there's much to read into that. Thought a couple of players like Gomez looked quite impressive and stuff, but yeah, when we were discussing it, I think last week or the week before, I can understand it. I think the little I saw of the youth team where he was the manager, the playing style seemed quite progressive and modern. He obviously knows those people really well. That will be the ones that kind of get wedded into the first team now. So yeah, I'm not opposed to it to be honest, but my preference would still, I think, be if like a Jurgen Klopp was to say yes, I'll take it. I still think my preference would be that, but I don't think anyone like that is actually available.
I think if someone like that was available and England went for him, I don't think you're going to get much pushback. I can't even imagine with Klopp that there'd be this kind of historical German English rivalry. I can't even see it being a problem anymore. And people like Sven, who obviously we spoke about last week, so kind of opened up that door anyway. So, like, if you're asking people, would you rather have like a Jurgen Klopp and wait for it next year, or just have Lee Carsley? I think people would go for the Klopp option. He's a chest thumper, and I think people want that in their international teams as well. Like real passion in the way teams play. I think what we've seen from Carsley so far, I feel like it's mixed stuff. The first obvious caveat to say is with respect to Ireland and Finland, like two very, very average opponents who I don't think would stay up in the Premier League, to give you a bit of context. So what England have done in these two games is only what the expectation is. Within that, there's been two very good halves of football. The first half in Dublin was good, was really enjoyable. And the second half last night was really good as well. The second half on Saturday, I think naturally they took their foot off the pedal. And in the first half last night, England really struggled to create opportunities. I think he was showing off a little bit last night with changing the system from Saturday, in the sense he had both fullbacks moving into midfield areas. And when they stopped doing it so obviously, England benefited in the second half, just because Trent could see the game a little bit more, and he was fantastic. He's been
Some
England's
of his
best player this
passing.
week. Yeah. I mean, of the 4 goals England have scored, Trent has had a pivotal role in 3 of them, which from right back is we all know how good he is. I felt Rico Lewis held off the movement a lot more last night in terms of as the game progressed. I felt like really early on in the game was just moving into midfield. I actually felt watching the first half reminded me a lot of Tottenham. Just the fullbacks were just going and disappearing. And I think they were doing it too quickly. Purely because as well, I think, say, for Ezri Konsa, didn't play badly last night. We'll talk about him a bit more later in the podcast. I don't, for him, just being in that position as a centre back and looking wide and seeing you haven't got anything there is just really unusual for him. Really is. He's constantly just going back to John Stones a lot. And it's not a criticism of him. So this happens a lot with Tottenham. We'd end up going back to the goalkeeper quite a lot because you draw in a press. Can you find a midfield player because the fullbacks have moved in? You can't do it. The other thing that really made me think of Tottenham in the first half last night was the amount of good opportunities we give up. Despite complete domination, Finland had a couple of counter-attacks that should not have been happening.
Yeah.
And we looked way too open. That stopped in the second half. And I think it's primarily because of the positioning of Lewis and Trent, which was just a little bit more sensible in their movements. It was like, okay, we've now built into their final third. Now, if Rico Lewis particularly wants to go into a centre forward position, like you can. Trent wasn't doing it as much. Whereas in the first half, I felt like particularly Lewis was just moving in as soon as the centre-backs had the ball. Last night was like, let's progress. Now let's move. And he just felt a little bit more comfortable because it's new for the players, right? There's no Tottenham players in that team last night. Even Harry Kane only very briefly in one pre-season with Ange would have had anything in terms of knowledge of that system, which basically just builds with a back two. Most others don't. So I don't think you can get carried away with what you've seen this week. He's shown tactical flexibility, which is good. I don't mind that in the sense, okay, something looked like it didn't quite work in the first half. It evolved and then got better in the second half. We saw Levi Colwill play left back in the game in Dublin. I don't think he touched the ball in the final third, which is, for a team that massively dominates, is obviously really unusual for a fullback. He just played left-sided centre-back, basically, rather than left-back. England built in a back three for the whole game, basically, in Dublin, with Trent going and doing whatever he wanted. And you saw the benefit of that. One thing I would say about his comments on the press conference on Tuesday, it was the first time I'd heard him kind of reaffirm that this was his job for this year and that's it. And I was surprised that he kind of was really open about saying that, because I think everybody's reaction to the win in Dublin was pretty positive. It's just don't need to openly. And it's kind of downplaying the expectation. I think my view is that they've probably already decided it's him. This Nations League campaign is highly unlikely to go wrong because of the opponents. We've got Greece as the other team we've got to play. So even if England did slip up, and draw a game somewhere, the chances are you're going to win that group. Probably even lose one, is still going to win the group. So it's like a kind of a free hit of just get people on board with some comfortable fixtures.
Yeah.
And I expect him to be the England manager. Pretty confident of that at this stage.
I think for me, the thing is, like you said, you can't get carried away and stuff. But when you do see tactical flexibility, I think that's encouraging. And even little things like putting a Gordon in there that I think you and I were both of the opinion was probably the most natural left winger for England at the Euros. I like I said, didn't see the Ireland game, but what I saw last night, I thought he did really good in 1v1s against his fullback. Little things like playing Grealish as a 10. I think might be better suited to him in that England system. Like I know he had a slight
Again,
preference for the
talk
left, but
reminding of Tottenham, he's played the position so similar to how James Maddison would regularly play for Tottenham.
yeah, I think there was a lot of encouraging tactical things where, yeah, sure, you can't over-index and get excited about because of the opposition, but it's still encouraging to see. And I think that is the sort of stuff that can translate to the biggest stages, in my opinion. So yeah, encouraging stuff.
Media after Carsley already because he won't sing the national anthem.
Oh no, I saw that all over
Are you
Twitter.
bothered?
Oh, I don't care. No,
No, neither do I.
no,
I couldn't
yeah,
care less. If Klopp took the job, would you expect to sing it?
no.
Seriously.
I yeah, each to their own. It's not something that bothers me.
No, it did feel like something instantly though, where there was like something that the media could try and put it in, where they just could never get anything on Gareth. I am a little not concerned, but when he speaks, I find him a bit one-toned. And what I mean by that is, I think Southgate could draw you in emotionally sometimes when he spoke about things. Carsley's he's a different human being, like
I've
quite
not actually
clearly.
listened to him speak, to be fair.
He's very calm. I don't think he's when you listen to him, he doesn't inspire. I think that's concerning, just in the sense that I speak about United and Liverpool jobs, particularly like you need a personality in those jobs. And I'm not saying he doesn't have it, he does, and his football's way more important. And it's not like he's going to have the scrutiny week after week after week. But he does give off the air, I think, of impression in press conferences that he doesn't really want to do it, as in the press conference gig. And I think people will pick up on that. That's just an opinion that I've formed based on listening to so far. But it's also very new for him. You would think speaking in front of media like that, he's never done it before.
Yeah, would he
But
not have
maybe
had to
that's
do
something
it for
he'll
the
grow
under?
into as well.
Yeah, possibly. And I think it's one of them. If the football's going well, that will kind of speak for itself. But yeah,
Yeah, a few bits just to cover off in terms of personnel. I think what you say about Gordon's right. Like he looked instantly just more natural. I think for Harry up front as well, to have someone that he knew was going to go and run beyond. And I think England need that sort of outlet. In terms of Grealish positioning, you've obviously got one of Bellingham or Foden is going to, I mean, Bellingham's definitely obviously going to probably end up playing in that role, isn't he? But I would say in Kazi's system, there's more scope for potentially Bellingham and Foden in central roles and still have like Gordon and Saka, particularly against opponents like this. And that's something you'd like to look at. That would obviously detail having Declan Rice deeper. And we haven't seen that in these two games. And it is interesting that Rice has played as the right-sided eight when predominantly we've only really seen him play that role to the left-hand side. And again, the lean that Grealish had to the left, it did feel very much like Declan Rice was playing the role very similarly to how Pat Matasar plays it for Tottenham. I can see so many similarities, not in the Ireland game, but last night in that first half, similarities with what Tottenham do. But it also ultimately didn't feel like it worked in that
yeah,
first half. I want to shout out Angel Gomez as well, because we spent a lot of the summer talking about Adam Wharton, and we've forgotten that he exists this morning, I think.
yeah, tidy
Um,
little player.
yeah, it was interesting when they was doing the national anthem and they panned through and Lewis was standing. I don't know if they'd done it intentionally because Rico Lewis is quite small, but Lewis was standing next to Gomez, and I thought that was quite sensible. So you had two short guys together.
He's 5'6". That's
He
outrageous.
looks smaller.
He looks tiny. Yeah.
He makes me think that if I was a teenager now, I'd still have a chance, because I don't think someone like him would have got given a chance in the late 90s or the early 90s because he's
No
so
way.
small and
Yeah.
everybody wanted those powerful, aggressive 6 foot box to box midfielders. You know what I really like about Gomez that stood out was I thought his reactions were great. What I mean by that is when anything was loose, he was there and he was quick to it.
Very front-footed. Yeah.
And he also wasn't, I think people who play in that position can just end up being quite side to side. He was that a lot, but he wanted to play forward in the same way that Adam Wharton does. And I like that. He was quite busy. He wants to get involved in the tackle. That's going to be a new player to people's psyche. And you do look back at those problems we had in the summer as well, and wanting Wharton to play anything. Where was this lad? You and I mentioned him in March, knowing very little about him. Now we've seen him, you're like, yeah, particularly against an opponent like this where you're going to have a lot of the ball. This is fine. This is fine. I don't know how you'd want him in there if you're playing against Spain's and stuff would be, and that was the concern we had about Wharton, right? What about when you're going that way? But we've all forgotten about Adam Wharton overnight.
Yeah, it's definitely I think when you're looking at the midfield, like Declan Rice, I think will always be in there, but this is what I've spoken about, especially being an Arsenal fan, pairing him with the right partner, and I think that's where you do need like that ball progressor next to him. And yeah, I mean, you say we've forgotten about Wharton overnight. I think he will get his chance
Oh
over the
yeah.
next few squads. But it'll be interesting to compare them because yeah, I was really impressed with what I saw of Angel
I
Gomez
don't
last
think
night.
as much was made of it as perhaps should have been known that he wasn't in that squad.
Yeah, I don't. I think it was probably like we didn't. I don't remember seeing him in any of the friendlies or the build up to the competition.
What, prior to the Euros?
Yeah.
No, he kind of made that cameo appearance against Bosnia at Newcastle when really impressed.
Oh, you're talking about Wharton.
That
Sorry, I
kind
thought
of
you were
got
talking
him in
about.
the squad. Yeah, no, I'm talking about Wharton.
Oh,
Gomez has
sorry.
basically come from nowhere for
That's what I was.
majority of people in their minds because he's been playing in France.
I do think there was a bit of a hoo-ha about Wharton, though. I think people were kicking up a bit of a fuss.
Didn't see a lot. I mean, very
No.
unusually, when the squad was announced, most people seem to be quite happy with it. You know, people like Morgan Gibbs White getting a bit of a chance. I think Noni Madueke did well when he came on last night. So some fresh faces in there as well. We should touch on Harry Kane.
Yeah,
Obviously,
100 club.
100th cap. I was trying to explain to my wife last night like how historic that is, and I think the idea of reaching 100 caps for England has been lost a little bit because there was a number of players who did it through the golden generation team. Your Ashley Cole's, David Beckham's, Wayne Rooney. There was a number who did it together when it is something that hadn't happened for like quite a long time. And Kane's the first one to do it, I presume, since
Rooney.
Rooney. He's returned over that period a return of 2 goals in 3. I recognise it helps playing some teams in there like your San Marinos, who we'll speak about in a second, that helps boost the goal tally. But I think it was a really nice night for him and his family. I watched it quite proud because he's still one of my own to me, and was delighted that he scored the goals that won the game for England last night with 2 very typical Kane finishes. And I think it's nice that we've seen Kane look good for England in these 2 games because I think there was massive question marks for him after the tournament, and we'll probably never know if he was fit or not in hindsight. Great chances for Harry Kane. Harry Kane will still score goals. I don't think there's much doubt about that. Having that pace outlet of Gordon is much better for him. And I think we've got to move forward now and get away from this trying to shoehorn the best 11 in the team. And if Gordon's going to be the best option for Harry Kane and Harry Kane's going to be your number 9, do that. It's fairly clear that Saka will be first choice on the right. That was the other thing about Gomez. Gomez played the ball to Saka at one point, and I'm looking at Saka. He's Saka 6'3". All of a sudden, it just looks ginormous next to him. I'm sure you were delighted that Bukayo Saka got an early substitution last
I
night, as
was,
we'll
yeah.
come on to in a bit. I think that ultimately you can't get carried away with anything this week with England. I think the biggest learning would be that he's shown a little bit of tactical flexibility in the 2 games. I think that's encouraging. And if you can't try things in these games, like when are you? England have only done what the expectation was this week, though.
Yeah, but I think with that, it's because we spoke about Graham Potter, right? And we said there'll be certain things he does where you're like, what the hell? I think I like it when you can look at a team selection and be like, oh, that all makes sense.
Yeah, no, it was fine. As a start, it's fine. It's fine. Let's talk Crisis Club, Plate. It's not a Crisis Club, so it's a Crisis Nation this week because I mean, if you're losing the San Marino, you've got to be Crisis, haven't you?
Yeah.
And it's worth saying that for poor Liechtenstein, they're now on a 40-game winless streak as well.
What was San Marino's before this, I wonder?
Astonishing numbers. I mean, some of the numbers on San Marino historically are crazy. I think they went 14 years without scoring an away goal at one point. They, a couple of years ago, drew 0-0 with Liechtenstein and Gibraltar, and it was the first time they'd ever gone more than a game without losing. 2 0-0s. I think, in terms of competitive games, they've played about 160 odd or so since the formation. And this is the first competitive win. It was their first win of any sort for 20 years.
The guy who scored wasn't even born the last time they won.
Is
Again,
that right?
19 years old. Nico Sensoli. Take a bow, son.
That's absolutely incredible. And I think San Marino has been in the English psyche for a really long time because not long, obviously, after they formed, they played England in the qualifiers for USA 94. And people will remember, people of my generation, probably the weirdest moment in English football history in terms of the national team when David Guidetti put San Marino 1-0 up against England after 8.3 seconds in Bologna.
I've not seen this.
It's well,
I need to go
they
and
kick off, they try and go forward, and England get it back, and Stuart Pearce under hits a back pass, and Guidetti gets there before Seaman and scores. Bear in mind, we had to win the game 7-0 and hope that Netherlands lost in Poland, which they didn't anyway. The Netherlands won 3-1. But it was one of them moments, all you could do was piss yourself laughing. Until 20 minutes later, England was still losing 1-0.
and we're getting a bit nervous at that
I'm a
point.
little bit serious. I saw someone, I think there was a description when Scotland had played them originally. They were drawing a game 0-0 with Scotland about 20 minutes ago, which Scotland did win. And the commentator had said, it's just dawned on me that Scotland are drawing 0-0 with a mountain top, basically. And to give you context of the size of San Marino, the population's around about 33,000, which is roughly the size of Letchworth Garden City, Clayton.
Jesus Christ.
So, yeah, in terms of population. Now, if Letchworth Garden City were playing even teams in League One or League Two, and I would suggest your likes of Finland, Republic of Ireland are probably championship level, like what chance have they got?
Yeah, none. It's yeah, I've always found them because there's that fan account on Twitter, isn't it? And I do follow it, and I just like keeping an eye on them. And I mean, England obviously beat them 10-0 a few years ago, right? And so I've always felt sorry for them, but I don't know. What was your reaction when you saw the result? Because I thought it was cool and nice, but I didn't go like overboard
This has been a thing for ages. Like I said, the San Marino thing, I think, has been in the English supporter psyche since the 90s of them being kind of the first real kind of Premier League era minnows that we played. England had won by some big scores against teams like Turkey, but then they massively improved, for example, in years beforehand. San Marino was a story in terms, it's not like Turkey in terms of your population, your country. This is the debate that often people have had, should they be here? It's 33,000 people. It's a village, basically.
Yeah.
They're a small landlocked country, obviously kind of within the sanctuary of Italy. There's nothing in terms of the place that people particularly speak of in terms of, there's this attraction in San Marino. One of the attractions is the football team. The football team, because of its glorious failures. And that's been the attraction for my wife. Often we joke international weekends, say, do you want to hear one of the results today? And we'll do something like San Marino 0, Germany
And then
13.
guess. Yeah.
And have a guess. And I even threatened to buy her a San Marino shirt once because she's quite invested in the fact that they are what's been known as the shittest football team in the world. I think you only have to look what the psyche is like to look through our patron Slack on Friday night when they were winning, and like, they're going to do it. That was all people were talking about. And our Slack Friday night was, San Marino going to win this game of football. It's worth saying they're only ranked about 10 places in the world rankings worse than Liechtenstein. But then how nice is it for them to have this moment now of actually winning a game of football and not just being this team that gets the floor wiped to them? If people want to know like a relevance of, well, what's the Nations League good for? When I'm often sitting here and saying, it is unfortunately a waste of our time when England play these sort of nations. And it's a fine balance between, do they deserve to be here? Of course, they have the right to compete, but do they even enjoy it? And I think maybe my stance on that's been quite harsh because they've felt like an irritant. And it's not just a specific to San Marino, it relates to a number of other nations. We do feel like that. My player's playing against San Marino. The only thing you're thinking about is please don't get injured.
Yeah.
So it becomes an irritant, but that's our view. It shouldn't necessarily be their view. Your fan account, by the way, that you'd mentioned, who's got a follower count, I think above 100,000 now.
It is nuts, yeah.
Which is about 3 times as many people as are in San Marino, right? He's not from San Marino, he's Dutch.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Why is he the person behind
He's
the account?
Dutch and became I forget his name. He became invested in the story of them and thought it would be a great idea to follow them. And obviously, the more he's done it, he's become emotionally invested in them. I was reading a piece on the Athletic from a year ago where actually they'd played a game in Parma against Kazakhstan. And a lot of the people who traveled to support San Marino weren't from San Marino. There were actually people like dotted from around Italy, various places, who had become invested in the San Marino story of being this plucky underdog who always loses. That's what it was.
I wonder if this
Uh,
will have a knock-on impact on whether they can actually kick on and do anything. I've got a feeling it might just. I don't want to be that guy, but I've got a
what, like
feeling it
they're
might
going to
just be a.
qualify for the World Cup? No,
No,
Blakes,
just
it's
like
not.
I don't know in terms of like supporters getting behind them and stuff. I do have a feeling this will be. I don't want to be that guy, but a flash in the pan. But
Can I tell you though, since England won in San Marino in November 2021, so nearly 3 years ago, some of the results that followed, they have since then only conceded more than 4 goals once
that's not
in,
bad
in
in
just
three
under
years.
three
Yeah.
years. And that was a 6-0 defeat to Finland that England beat last night. It includes over that period, they've played Denmark twice, lost 4-0 and 2-1 to Denmark. They actually equalised against Denmark. They went through a period of games where they scored in 3 games in a row. They've never scored two in a game, by the way.
So they are improving.
If you look at the results, they've also what's I think's happened is they've arranged some friendlies over recent years that have given them half a shot. So, like they played Seychelles in a friendly and drew 0-0. They played 2 games with St. Lucia in late 2022 in St. Lucia, like a double header. They drew 1-1 and lost 1-0. So these feel like more football matches, right? You're playing something where you've got a genuine chance of winning games. Then you look at their qualifying results for the Euros. And again, they played Denmark twice, lost 4-0 and 2-1. They played Slovenia, lost 4-0 and 2-0. They played Northern Ireland, lost 2-0, 3-0. Okay, still getting beat, but these results are much better. Kazakhstan lost 3-0 and 3-1. And to Finland, lost 6-0 and lost 2-1. They then played, a lot of people had eyes on a game in March this year, again, a double header, where they played St. Kitts and Nevis twice in San Marino in a row. And it was being dubbed the worst football match of all time because I think they were generally the two lowest ranked teams in the world at the time.
What was the score in that one?
They
Like
lost
5-5?
three, they lost 3-1 and drew 0-0.
Okay.
And so you start thinking, it's never going to happen. And interestingly, what people might not know following the victory against Liechtenstein on Friday is they played a friendly in Moldova on Monday. Score
I didn't know
guess?
that. 4-1.
Lost 1-0.
Okay, yeah, they're
So
improving.
becoming more competitive. I mean, Moldova within the last 12 months have got draws against Poland and Albania under their results. And that's two teams that was just in the last major tournament. So there's definitely improvements that's happening now. I just think it's a really nice story amongst a lot of the doom and gloom around international football that they've won the game. The only thing is, and this is a downer from now that they've won, do people give a shit about them anymore?
I think, yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at. I do think there will be some people that are invested in them and probably, well, you said the follow account on that account went triple fold, right? So it went from 30,000 to
It's a
100K.
great account, by the way.
Yeah,
And he's become, even though he's Dutch, he's become completely invested in them. It's not just like a social media. I'm sure a lot of it is the interactions and stuff, but he generally feels it. You can feel it in his tweets
yeah,
that he's so passionate about what's happening.
I do think it'll just more or less be the same. People will keep an eye on them. Like they'll still probably get thumped in a few games, and people will be like, "Oh yeah, there's San Marino." But yeah, just what a nice memory for the people that were well there, living in the country and from there. I think it's great.
Just imagine that 20 years and 160 odd games, you see your team win for the first time.
They need to start singing "It's Coming Home."
But it is the equivalent of Letchworth Garden City beating Welling Garden City.
When you said that, that blew my yeah, because I've got a BBC Sport article open in front of me, and it said, yeah, it's like a 61 square kilometer population that it covers, half the size of Manchester. That's mental.
Yeah, it's a tiny place. Good luck to them. That's a really nice story. Maybe we'll be sitting here in 10 years going, well, Liechtenstein, ever win a game of football. I think Suj likes Liechtenstein because I think it's a good place for tax dodging and stuff, isn't it? Apparently. I want to talk about some of the impacts on FPL of some of the things that have happened over the last week in terms of injuries. There's obviously a big one, and we'll talk about this in a lot more detail in terms of the tactics for the game on Sunday on Patreon later. Obviously, the injury to Martin Odegaard. The doctor, one of the doctors for the Norway national team, is a quote that's been going around this morning now, which suggests that he probably will be out for around 3 weeks. How, from a fantasy perspective, Clates, that how big of a blow is this to the other assets like Saka, Havertz, and even to the defensive ones?
I think for Havertz, it's a big one because there is the chance that he now plays in midfield a little bit more. So, like, I was eyeing up game week 6, getting Havertz in where Arsenal got Leicester at home, Southampton at home, then Bournemouth away. Yeah, one to keep an eye on now on him because there is a chance he'll go in and play midfield. In terms of the others, obviously, to state the obvious, Odegaard is a huge blow, and like we progress the ball through him a lot, and we have a huge right side bias in the way we build up. But I do think like there are alternative ways to play football, and I think Arsenal are a very good team that will find solutions. And I don't think games like Tottenham away, Man City away were the ones where you're expecting Arsenal to fly off the handle and haul from a fantasy perspective. So I'm not sure the impact will be so bad on other assets in them games. And yeah, defensively, that's a good question because he is obviously a big part of kind of pressing from the front and the way that he channels and shepherds people into different areas and stuff. So I think that might have a knock-on impact. Like, especially I'm thinking going through solutions for the North London derby, which we'll talk about later. If there's a double pivot with a Havertz as like a number 10, then that of course has a impact systematically on how Arsenal operate. But in terms of the actual knock-on impact on fantasy assets, I don't think it will. And I know that sounds stupid because he's such a great player, but I just think there will be alternative solutions that still have an impact where Arsenal are capable of going in and winning games and scoring goals. But the biggest one for me is Kai Havertz. That's the one where keep an eye on his position in the team now, if he has to drop into midfield or if there's another solution where he still stays up top.
Yeah, I do think there's a potential impact here to Saka as well, though. You've spoken about that right-sided bias. You know, if Saka runs in behind, who's often finding with that pass? It's Odegaard, isn't it? And also, if you are going to move to, say, a 4-2-3-1, which I think would, under the circumstances, might be understandable, rather than throwing a Sterling into that role, because obviously, particularly for the Tottenham game, obviously, there's no Declan Rice either. It would maybe be the sensible solution to say we're going to sit off this a little bit more and protect. There is an impact of that. One, he might get a bit more space, ironically, on the counter attack because there's less people in his zone. But I worry about from a fancy perspective, the link, if it's just going to be, say, Havertz as a 10 and how much he's got close to him, because people love to double up on him anyway. So if he's not got the space to, he's just going to end up going backwards a lot. Might be what you see over these next few games. I think the impact on Saka, you wouldn't have expected mass hauls against Tottenham City anyway. I often joke there'll be goals in the derby, and Saka could certainly return, particularly in that game at the weekend. But a lot of us want to captain him in game week 6, Clays.
And that doesn't put me off
At
in the
home
slightest.
to Leicester. Now, if Odegaard is 3 weeks, he probably misses that. And you do have PSG at home on the Tuesday afterwards. Does that create any concern from that perspective if you wanted to captain Saka in 6?
I don't have any concerns on Saka's ability to haul against Leicester without Martin Odegaard. I still think Arsenal will find sustainable solutions to attack, yeah, very consistently and create chances to win that game comfortably. The PSG impact, so that Leicester game, I think is a Saturday, right?
It is. It's a 3 o'clock Saturday. It's worth saying the midweek before you play Carabao Cup at home to Bolton, which you would presume that's going to be rest for Saka then.
Yeah, he won't play against Bolton in the Carabao Cup. But I think Leicester will be a case of, I mean, he'll start both games, Leicester PSG, obviously. Leicester, if we're winning comfortably, I think, yeah, he'll probably get hooked around 70 to 80 minutes or so. But if there's a chance that Arsenal need to win the game, he's not coming off, in my opinion. So honestly, I can understand the thought process, but I think with respect, it's a team like Leicester at home where Arsenal will just have too much, in my opinion. And there's always another way to attack. I think Arsenal have their preferred system with Odegaard and stuff. Like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being advantageous to Saka where he's got more space because no one else is kind of operating in that zone so close to him, like you said earlier. So I think it's one to keep an eye on. Like you said, I don't think you're expecting hauls against Tottenham and City anyway, but I wouldn't let it put anyone off going and captaining him against
Do you own
Leicester
at
as
the
it
moment
stands.
or not?
Who Saka? Yeah, I own him. Yep.
Any consideration to sell?
Nope.
So you wouldn't think of, we kind of spoke about hokey cokies on Monday, something like to De Bruyne for a couple or something like that.
No, but again, that's like personal strategy dependent. Just because I'm trying to hold the wild card, I don't want to be
Yeah.
messing around with hokey cokies. If people wanted to do that, I understand it. Like, I don't think Saka is going to go off big against Tottenham or Man City, but Leicester, Southampton, even with the Odegaard news, if I didn't own him, I'd be buying him.
It will add to the narrative of trying to move him to Salah, though, for those who are trying to do it, aren't they? This is a little bit more of a push to say, yeah, go and do it.
Yeah, and yeah, you can't really talk people out of going and getting Mo Salah ahead of those fixtures. So
It's difficult to try and put a spin on it to think that Odegaard being out could be good for Saka.
no, and I'm not trying to do that. I think it's just I think people are over-indexing how much of an impact it will have against the type of opposition that Arsenal are going to play.
Okay. Couple of Villa players to touch on. Firstly, just briefly, Ezri Konsa obviously picked up a knock for England last night and went off injured. A few minutes later, I know he's sitting in a lot of teams, and those teams would have largely been hoping he'll play this weekend with Everton at home. The word after the game would suggest it'll probably be all right. Obviously, one to monitor over the next couple of days, but it'll probably be okay. I guess those who wanted to invest in a Villa defender are now going to look at Pau Torres or Luca Dean instead. I'd recommend listening to last Thursday's Clash of the Correspondents if you want a reason to be put off. But Leon Bailey, we assume, is certainly going to miss out of at least this weekend, we think, having got injured at Leicester in game week 3. How does that impact your thinking towards Villa assets and the likes of Rodgers, Watkins, and even maybe Jacob Ramsey going into the weekend?
I was hoping you were going to tell me because yeah, I'm not sure what to think about that.
Well, I think their solution will probably be when Bailey was unavailable a lot last year, just played McGinn on the right rather than a like for like. And they could bring someone like Philogene Biddance into the team. I mean, Ramsey could play out outside. I'm pretty sure Rodgers could as well, although I certainly think there's a desire to use Rodgers in the 10 position. I think that the big one would be, it's a little bit like with Odegaard. You're losing probably your most creative player.
Yeah.
And even in Bailey's sense, and it's not to compare him to Odegaard, but he draws attention, doesn't he? People don't want to get left 1v1 with him out wide and stuff. So even that, if you're Mikalenko and you're facing McGinn this week rather than Bailey, you're probably a little bit nervous of getting lumped up in the air, but it's a very different opponent. He'd be thinking, well, I'm glad I'm not playing Bailey this week. And then there's a knock-on impact of that. So I think they'll probably play McGinn right, Ramsey left, and Rodgers where he has been playing behind Watkins. So I don't think it's a major reason to be put off. It's worth saying it does look like at this stage that Jared Branthwaite might make it for Everton this weekend. And that probably for the immediate this weekend feels like a bigger impact than Bailey missing out. Because I think we'd have always had to look at it. And I said this in pre-season about Bailey. Everton at home, Champions League, Wolves at home. He's probably not playing all 3 of them games, even if he'd been fit anyway. So I think there was always a possibility that he might have missed out with the way it's worked with him playing Young Boys Tuesday. And that's the other relative to the Villa players is what we're looking at minutes this week for Young Boys. As per Monday, we can't know here, can we?
No, not yet.
No, not with a game at 5:45 Tuesday. What the impact is of Villa playing Saturday 5:30 and then the same time Tuesday and how much Emery will rotate, we don't. I suspect for the Wolves game, it'll probably be better because then you've got a 4-day gap and then they play Wickham in the Carabao Cup in the midweek after. So, yeah, Bailey missing out is a loss, but I guess one of the FPL impacts is you will feel a bit safer about the likes of Rodgers this week, maybe.
Yeah. What impact do you think it has on a Watkins though? Because obviously there's a lot of that's the one where I think people are torn between buy, keep, sell, and he falls into different categories.
For Watkins, you just want him to be in a position where he's going to get the chances, and obviously not having Bailey there doesn't help. Doesn't help at all, because the creativity aspect, and Villa might find difficult moments against Everton with if Branthwaite's back in the team, because you know they'll defend the penalty area well. You wouldn't expect Watkins to beat these sort of players in the air. He is a player who will thrive off of the space in behind. But you'd still trust him, despite the misses against Arsenal, to take his chances if Villa can create for him. And judging on what I saw at White Lane a couple of weeks ago, creating chances probably shouldn't be too much of a problem. Just Jared Branthwaite's going to help with some of the stuff in and around the penalty area. So I don't think there's a huge impact. I think it could be
Yeah,
overplayed here.
I'm the same. I do think people over-index these sort of things because I don't know. We've seen it before. Well, look at Man City, how they manage their like. I heard this quote from someone on another pod where like they manage their squad imperfections so well. Where sure you don't have a like for like replacement with Rodri, but then you tweak the system to get different attributes that you're lacking, right? And I think that's the thing. If people are thinking with Odegaard, Bailey, oh, there's not a like for like replacement. Like you don't build your squad like that. I think you will tweak systems to get attributes that you're lacking from that player being out and tweak it so you get them in different areas of the pitch. And it's like one of the examples I remember when Tottenham sold Kane, everyone was like, oh, you've just lost 30 goals. Like, how are you going to do that? It's like, you don't go and sign someone that's going to score 30 goals. You tweak the system. And yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, it's obviously affected my confidence in terms of going to Tottenham and City and the result Arsenal can get. But from a fantasy perspective, I wasn't expecting hauls in those games anyway. Against Leicester and Southampton and Bournemouth, yeah, I think there's always a solution, in my opinion.
What would be Manchester City's solution to Nathan Ake's injury? Now, he's not been
Yeah, that looked
playing,
bad.
but we think it's most likely a bad hamstring injury. The fact that he was crying as he left the field would suggest it's probably not a twinge. And he has, not recently, I don't believe, but has historically had hamstring issues. So it's probably something I know what I've done here. And a bad hamstring injury, might be that he doesn't play again this year. Now that leaves City with essentially one left-footed defender in Josko Vardy. He's nailed. He's going to play every game. Well, no, I think we saw last night that City have someone else who can play at left back, Enrico Lewis. And I think he's not beyond reason to play someone like Manuel Kanji. I think Pep, he's now the position where he feels like he can use him wherever he wants, actually, if he wanted to give a Vardio a break. I guess more the impact is it. What do we think that is longer term for Vardio? Because I'd see a lot of talk last night with Aki's out, then that's it. He's just the defensive left footer for balance now in City's back three build up. Is that how you'd see it?
No, similar to you. Like, I think Rico Lewis exists. Walker's not really played too many minutes. And again, Pep manages his squad really well when it gets to the every 3 days, right? So I don't think it necessarily makes Vardy nailed. If anything, it makes me think, oh, he's going to want to protect him even more and keep him for the most important games. So it's not made me think, oh, yeah, I'm going to go and definitely get him for every game now. What's your take on it?
I think Vardio is just a non-go, isn't he, from a fantasy aspect? It does certainly benefit Lewis, I think, in the sense there's just more chance of the minutes there now. In the sense that, yes, could it be that Vardio gets a break and Lewis plays at left back and moves into midfield from there and Cole Walker plays right back? Yes, definitely. So I think for Lewis, prospects are a little bit better in terms of moving forward. I guess that also applies to the other defenders. If you are interested in the likes of Ruben Diaz and Akanji, in terms of the amount of minutes they're going to get, well, one of their teammates looks like it's going to be out for a long period, so clearly there will be more minutes there. And I don't think Nathan Ake's not a player we'd have looked at and went, oh yeah, he's going to just be a backup now. Not at all. I think he's
No
improved
way.
incredibly
Yeah.
over the last couple of years and valued to arguably be in City's best 11 when fully fit. So it's definitely a blow. Doesn't make Vardy better at this moment, though.
No, I agree.
I don't see it that way. For minutes, maybe a little bit, but in terms of his positioning, no, nothing particularly better. Just
I
one
was
quick
just,
more line on. Go on, Clates. Go on. You're
no, I
gonna
was
say
just going to say
something.
I was the same as you. First thing that came to my mind was Rico Lewis, not Josko Vardio.
Yeah, I'm still indifferent on it. I think if I was wildcarding this, it probably goes in, chance it. But I'd want to go with someone like Consa, I can't. But Pau Torres, who I was definitely confident was going to play and cover in the eventuality that he he didn't play. But Lewis showed again last night that the quality of the player that he could be. Yeah. There's not really limits on that. And I don't think there's limits in terms of what he might even be positionally moving forward. I've been saying this pretty much since I first saw him. His intelligence at his age is striking.
Yeah.
Really striking.
I do think that's where modern football's going. It's less about positions and traditional, that's the shirt number you've got, you operate there. I think it's just what can you do in different areas of the pitch with your tactical and tactical IQ, really. And he is just, such a joy to watch.
Yeah, he's got it. One more brief line on injuries that I've seen this morning. Nicholas Füllkrug won't play for Germany tonight. He's got calf issues according to their medical team. So it does perhaps mean more minutes for Mikel Antonio. However, just a note on that. Obviously, England did choose Jared Bowen essentially as their backup forward over this last week with Watkins pulling out, Tony disappearing to the Middle East, Dominic Solanke injured. I wonder if Bowen might be used there a little bit in forthcoming games for West Ham. Try and integrate Somerville into the team. You could move Kudos to the right, get Paquetá in a more central area. So keep an eye on that. But that's not a long-term solution there for West Ham. Clearly, they bought Füllkrug with the intention for him to play. It is most likely that Antonio gets a few more games, I would suggest, at the moment, if Füllkrug's going to be out for a little while. I think that's covered on injury stuff that might be an impact.
On injuries, the only other thing you said to mention was the South American travel, one of our favourite topics within the fantasy football world.
Quite right, because João Pedro, it's doing my head in the amount of people talking about him.
Come on, let's have a chat about him then.
he's a really good player. They've got 2 brilliant fixtures. He's had a really good start to the season, scored a couple of goals. If you want to get him in, get him in. I would not be put off by this South American stuff at all. I think last year, the incident, I think particularly Liverpool had a game, didn't they? Where they played at like 12:30 after the internationals. England's next manager had his usual rant about it and stuff like that. He'll never get 12:30s as England manager. So Jurgen, come. But a lot of the South American guys missed out. And it had been a thing for a while. It's like, I think it might have been when they played at Wolves this time last year. It was, the South American guys won't start. And if I remember correctly, maybe McAllister did start and he got taken off at half time and he didn't play well.
Good memory.
That rings a bell. And I think after that, they sorted their own private stuff out. And I think the clubs are putting together and getting a lot of these players back together. Like, you've got to work together on this.
Have you been flight tracking at all?
I haven't, no, but a few of our patrons have and a few people on Twitter/X have. We think there's a flight going from Asuncion, where Brazil played Paraguay last night, that's landing in Manchester about 6 o'clock today. There's another flight headed for Madrid today as well. So I think the worst case scenario here is these guys are going to be training tomorrow.
Yeah, it's fine.
But tomorrow's Thursday.
Yeah. No
so
dramas.
I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Now, in the case of João Pedro, could it be that he goes, I want to, he's Ipswich at home, I want to have a look at Jorginho Rutter this week and not start João Pedro. Maybe there's a mental aspect of his first Brazil call-up, give him a little bit of breathing space in terms of how he might be emotionally after that. Sure, that would probably be more the thing for him. Is there an emotional impact here for him rather than a physical impact? There is also for him, obviously, it's new. I've not done that and then going to come back and play on a Saturday. But I'd look at the fixture and think, we're playing Wolves in the Carabao Cup next midweek. That's when Rutter will start.
Yeah,
that would be my take.
Yep. I own João Pedro and I'm not concerned.
So I think of those that have kind of travelled from far, I think this is becoming less of a thing, and maybe more we should have a closer look at what's to come next. So if you look at, say, Liverpool players, Liverpool got Forest at home Saturday. It's fine, fixture. The guys are going to be back in time, not a problem. But they do go to Milan on Tuesday. So is there then a psyche that's right? So Diaz has played for Colombia. Do I want him to play Saturday and then Tuesday? That might be more of a thing. I think if Luis Diaz was to, say, be rested, and I'm not suggesting that will happen, but if he did, I don't think now that's it's a Colombia. I think we got another game on Tuesday. His first choice and playing really well at the moment. That might be more important, and I can use Diaz as an impact. That might apply to different players. I think it's more things like that. So my take on for João Pedro would be he'd probably play this weekend, kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
think
if I
so.
owned him, I'd probably captain him, wouldn't I? With the
You probably would. You're
the
stuck with your bus captain, aren't you?
with the players I've got. Right, let's talk about wokeness before we move on to on
Utter
this
woke
day.
nonsense. Sean Dyche
Honestly,
meme, where are you?
things that piss me off that really shouldn't, that really, really do. I saw that yesterday about Arsenal playing in black on Sunday at Tottenham. And I think involuntarily, I just looked at my phone and went, fuck off.
So I think there'll be some people that don't know what you're talking about. So do you want to set the
Yes.
context?
Right. Arsenal were going to wear black at Tottenham in the North London derby on Sunday. Arsenal haven't, to my knowledge, certainly since the Second World War, I think Arsenal have only worn an away kit at Tottenham once. Wore yellow in 1986.
Correct.
I think we won 1-0 from memory. And to my knowledge, Tottenham have only worn an away kit once at Arsenal over that period as well, where we decided very randomly to rock up in this black and grey half kit, like a black and white version of Blackburn's kit, basically, and proceeded to start really well and go 1-0 up. And then Emmanuel Adebayor decided to have a bit of a moment because he'd never had anything against Arsenal, got sent off, and we went on to lose 5-2 and got battered. I do also have a thing about teams wearing away kits unnecessarily. I think like you deserve to get beat. I remember Chelsea rocking up at Wembley against us a few years ago in yellow. I was like, nah, you deserve to get beat. Everton rocking up at our place a couple of weeks ago in black. No, you deserve to get beat. You got beat 4-0.
Why does it bother you?
Liverpool. I remember Liverpool turning up at White Hart Lane in Bell's last season wearing all black. What? Literally, Liverpool playing all red. What? We changed your kit for?
Why does it bother you so much?
It does. I really hate unnecessary kit clash. Those ones particularly. What I've learned, I used to get really annoyed in major tournaments about you'd have like a team in red and a team in green, and one of them's got to play in white, and I'd be like, "Could you play in your colours?" And what I've learned is things like obviously red and green is terrible for like colourblind people and stuff like that. And I even get the idea of, have one team that's got like a coloured shorts versus one that doesn't. I get all that sort of thing. But that, like Liverpool wearing black at Tottenham is ridiculous. And I think there's certain fixtures in not just this country, but in world football as well. You're like, don't piss around with the colour. There's certain fixtures where teams should always wear their first kits. Liverpool against Everton, Rangers against Celtic. You can even do it globally. Real Madrid against Barcelona. Barcelona rocked up at Bernabeu and went, no, I'm playing yellow.
It's just a bit weird,
What?
isn't it? The actual, so it was done, the decision was made by the PGMOL.
I get it. This isn't the club's fault.
Yeah.
I get that.
And should I read what they've actually said? So the PGMOL and the Premier League.
As if I didn't hate referees enough. Go on.
So Arsenal have said this quote, the PGMOL and the Premier League ruled that our 2024-25 home kit features too much white, thus clashing with Tottenham's traditional colours, even with the option of red shorts and socks for us, which was also discussed. It's just weird. It's like...
Right. Last year, so Tottenham's kit now has navy blue sleeves and navy blue shorts. Last year, Tottenham played in an all-white kit. Right. When Arsenal went to White Hart Lane in April, Arsenal wore their kit. Both teams played in white shorts. You cannot tell me there's now more white in the kits this year than there was last year.
No.
That is utter woke nonsense, Clayton. I'm not having it.
I'm the same as you. Like, it's tradition, right? It's like, and yeah, you can for Arsenal and Tottenham. It's the biggest rivalry. It's you wear your colours with pride, and I think that's like there's an element in my football brain where I'm very traditionalist with things, and this is one of them. So, but on the other hand, I'll be honest, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Like
but I wouldn't beat you playing in red.
Why? Like, what?
I do, because that's your colour.
If you beat us
you
playing in black, is it not going to count?
Yeah, if you beat us wearing the black, it doesn't count. It wasn't really Arsenal, but yeah, I don't know. Certain things we've got to be careful with the traditions in football, and I just think the argument that there's more white in that, I get there's more white in the shirt than there was last year, but not enough to tell me you can't tell the difference, that it would be an impact for the players. I don't believe that the Arsenal players have gone, oh, I'm a bit worried about this, or the Tottenham players have struck up or anything. Like I said, last year, both teams wore white shorts in the fixture. So if it's a refereeing decision, What happened last year? Oh, there's two players together and it bundled off a pair of shorts. What what difference it make? It's not going to be worse now. What's the chances now? It's going to always off the because Arsenal got too much white on the side there or something. It actually would be more colour contrast this season than it was last season. That's annoyed me. I have been prepared for this to happen for a while.
Have you?
Yeah, I tell you why. I always knew that if we ever played each other in Europe, we'd change kits
Why just in Europe?
because your sleeves.
Oh, okay.
For those who don't know, Arsenal's white sleeves, by the way, is a thank you to Tottenham from Arsenal for using White Hart Lane during the war, which you did know that because you know your history, Clates, right?
I
So
did.
Arsenal are forever thankful for Tottenham. Every time you see that kit, it's a bit
And
of
also
Tottenham on
thank you for
Arsenal's kit.
Tottenham for letting me see us win the league there.
I always knew you weren't there, mate. You baby, have you ever really seen Arsenal win the league? Not
I
really.
have.
No, not really.
I
Not
was
really.
there when we won it in 2004.
You was not a White Hart Lane.
Not at White Hart Lane against
That's
Leicester.
you
No.
weren't there. Shush. I was there, leaving quickly. I always knew that if we played each other in Europe, there's white sleeves, UEFA wouldn't have it. They're that hot on it. I remember England playing Scotland a few years ago in qualifiers for something, and Scotland having to play at Wembley in pink. And that was the same. That was because there was too much blue in like England's sleeves. So then it clashed with Scotland's. I mean, that also is utter woke nonsense.
Yeah. Do you think this will be a regular thing now then?
I think so. Maybe. I asked the neutrals. Is the spectacle of Tottenham versus Arsenal improved at the weekend because Arsenal playing black rather than red?
No, but I don't think people would say it's had an adverse effect either, to be honest. I think
I just think you watch what is one of the best fixtures in the league and it don't look right for me psychologically.
I think that's just in our echo chambers of being an Arsenal and a Tottenham fan. I don't think neutrals are gonna care.
Well, I do care. Like if Liverpool rocked up at Everton and played in white, what are you doing?
Yeah, fair. I think it's one of them. Like, it's weird, it's woke, but I think people get on with it.
People will get on with it. Tottenham will also therefore have to change their kit when they go to the Emirates in January, Clates.
Oh, yeah.
I presume we'll be wearing light blue for those who are interested because red and green, as discussed previously, obviously doesn't mix well together. There is one big game in this country, Clates, where the two teams always have to change their kit. And that's the feature of On This Day, which is from 1999. And I can tell you that Manchester United wore navy blue, kind of almost like a Tottenham looking kit from a distance, navy blue shirts, white shorts and white socks when they went to Anfield on September the 11th, 1999. They obviously went there as treble winners at the time, obviously. Liverpool had an indifferent start to the season. Had lost 2 games from their first 5, lost to Middlesbrough and Watford, but also beaten a much improving Leeds United and your team, Clates, prior to playing Manchester United. I think United won 13 points from their first 5 and looking like they were going to run away with things. They would do so. They would win the title by 18 points that season, Manchester United, which I think remains the largest distance. United had the title won with about 5 or 6 games to go, like officially, I think. So United went to Liverpool, treble winners. Liverpool had a very inconsistent 90s of underperforming the cup winners in 1995, but nowhere near the force of what they were in the 80s. United had very much kind of taken their mantle. It was Liverpool in the 80s, it was United in the 90s. So United went there and it was off the back of a game in April. You might remember Paul Ince had equalised very late on for Liverpool. The same night, you remember Carnew's goal at Tottenham?
I don't know.
No, shut up, Clates.
Did you say it was 1999?
You can't tell me you remember 2004. You don't
90...
know about Carnew's goal at White Hart Lane.
I know about it.
I'm trying
I
to help
remember
you
it?
here. I'm giving you actually a decent Arsenal memory.
I know it, but I don't remember it as if I was there. I was 4 years old.
Yeah. Anyway, you bottled it as usual. You lost at Leeds a couple of weeks later. So
hell, you're getting ready for it on Sunday.
Yes, Derby Sunday, isn't it, mate? Wait for patient today, mate. United go to Liverpool, obviously hot favourites. United have Massimo Taibbi in goal, I think, making his debut. Obviously, Peter Schmeichel had obviously stepped away from United and moved to Sporting Lisbon because I think he'd said he couldn't play for another English club, but propped up at Manchester City a few years later, as well as Aston Villa. And Liverpool got themselves in all sorts of trouble. There was a player who scored 2 own goals that day. Clates, know who it was?
I do not.
Good lad, Jamie Carragher,
Ah,
who buried a cross from Ryan Giggs, I think it was, from the left-hand side. One of them is in the corridor and it's at head height. What you're going to do, he obviously tries to head it out for a corner. He just buries it bottom corner.
good finish.
Gives United the lead. And United go 2 up not too long afterwards from another cross. In fact, all of United's goals in this game came from crosses. A brilliant delivery from David Beckham. Andy Cole manages to find himself unmarked from around about 8 yards and heads in. The build up to that free kick is quite hilarious. It'd probably be a couple of red cards in that now. Steven Gerrard, who was obviously very young at the time, was not unknown for launching into a tackle or two. This was presumably before him and Becks became mates, I would guess. And he proper tries to launch Beckham up in the air. And Beckham kicks out, not too dissimilar to the Diego Simeone incident. Referee lets it go. They score from the free kick. Liverpool pull a goal back before half-time, where Taibbi flaps a long floated cross from Jamie Redknapp. And Sami Hyypiä was an outstanding centre-back, pulled one back for Liverpool. And it was like, oh, Taibbi. Taibbi, of course, would only go on to last, I think it was 5 or 6 games for United. He was part of the team that lost 5-0 at Chelsea a few weeks later. And United obviously didn't lose games like that, although Newcastle fans will tell you that they did. And he obviously had the one that everyone remembers is the shot that he let through his legs against Matt Letizia in a 3-3 draw against Southampton. And this was obviously meant to be the replacement for what many had considered, and still consider arguably, the Premier League's greatest ever goalkeeper. So it should be 2-1 going into half-time, but our mate Jamie Carragher hasn't given up yet. Another delivery from Becks on the right-hand side. Henningberg tries to get on the end of it, takes a couple of ricochets, and Carragher, going back to his own goal, manages to make contact, and it just flies off his stomach and goes in the corner. 2 own goals in the biggest rivalry in the country, except for the North London rivalry, I'd like to add. United 3-1 up at half-time. Patrick Berger got a consolation for Liverpool in the second half. Really nice, tidy finish after a pass from Dominic Matteo. And actually, Taibbi made one really good save late on to deny Liverpool a leveller, which would have equalled their feat when they came back from 3-0 down against United in the 93-94 season. There was 1 red card in this game for Mr. Andy Cole, who got sent off. Second yellow card after getting in a tussle with Rigobert Song, where he tried to lash out and volley him, and he was already on a booking, and missed, basically, but the referee wasn't having it and give him his marching orders. But United held on for victory and would go on, as said, to win the title, an absolute canter. What I'd like to tell you about is Liverpool's end to the season, because this is, I think, one of the most forgotten bottle jobs, because I know you like a bottle job.
Tottenham fan talking about bottle jobs will never get old.
Listen, right? Let me have my moment here, right? So back in this day, obviously Champions League was expanding. Top 3 would get you a place in the Champions League. Liverpool, in their last 5 Premier League games of the season, didn't score.
Damn.
They
The
finished
last 5.
Yeah, they finished 2 points behind Leeds. The last 5 results of the season, drew 0-0 at Everton, lost 2-0 at Chelsea, lost 2-0 at home to Leicester, drew 0-0 at home to Southampton, and lost 1-0 at Bradford City, who stayed up and finished above Wimbledon on the final day of the season.
Not even a tough run of fixtures.
After David Weatherall, former Leeds United player, scored the goal. Yeah, you're going for Champions League place, didn't score in the final 5 games. What's that?
That's bad.
Isn't it? It's worth saying they'd had a very good run to get themselves in position, but yeah, blew it at the end. And I just never remember that. I was looking at their results from the season. That's astonishing. 5 games, Liverpool never scored.
Might have to slap on Premier League years later.
Well, you won't see much of it other than David Weatherall's goal, I don't think.
Fair play.
That's an on this day from 1999.
Very nice. Enjoyed it.
Cheers, mate. Tomorrow, Clash of Correspondents is Fulham versus West Ham with Lewis James and Chris Stone. And I will do my Ask James stream on Friday, scheduled for 2 p.m. UK time, if you'd like to join me for that. Clayton and myself will be back next Wednesday, where Clayton might actually have a proper intro. Sing us out, Clayton.
I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to be very good and say thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Cue music, please, man child.